Hi everybody. I have to do make a little bit of an apology. The other day I forgot to hit record during class, so we got all this done and no video of it. So basically, I'm going to start over from scratch, and I'll try and let you guys know when I get to the point where we had started in the previous lesson. I don't know how long it'll take me to get there, but essentially, I'm going to start this over. So if you recall, here's our sketch. So I'm just going to move that out of the way for now. So here we go. Yeah, that's basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to start over. I haven't drawn it on my paper yet. If you recall, this is based on a photo where none of this back here exists. There's a house back here. You know, this is like a driveway and a little garden, you know, like flower bed next to it, and a wall, and then there's a covered patio and a house here, and I didn't really care for it. The only thing I really liked was the wall and the gate, you know, right up here in the foreground. I really liked this little part, and then the hollyhocks, and I'll try and anyway, that were in there, and then in drawing it, I kind of got a little disinterested in just having hollyhocks. I thought, oh well, we need some different kinds of plant life in that flower bed, and then I decided I didn't really like that house back there, so I took that out and I made this you know, a different kind of you know, this is a gate, you know, a walled-in garden, but the house is somewhere else. So I put in some trees back here, and then a mountain you can kind of see, and three pine trees. Anyway, so that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna move this out of the way, and there we have the dreaded blank piece of paper, and I'm just going to draw this in again really quickly using my sketch, and then, you know, for those that didn't get to watch me sketch this, you know, or want to see how I sketch it, this will work out as well. So I'm going to start with this part of the wall up here, and I think I am going to kind of reference this. I'm going to move it over here so I can kind of see, because I want them to be fairly similar, at least in composition. I did a few changes from my sketch to this to the painting. So even though I have that sketch, I want to make sure that I follow the painting, because I had worked out some design issues, if you recall. If we look at that again, you'll remember that I took these and I moved them over here. They, you know, they were right there in the middle. It didn't really work, and really they needed to be over here. So that's what we have here. So I just want to remind myself of that. So I've got this sitting over here so I can kind of see it. And maybe that's a bit too big, I think. So we've got, and you can see sometimes when I sketch, I'll draw something, I'll think, okay, well that doesn't quite work, that's not the way I want it to look, so I'll redraw it before I erase the original part of the drawing. So then I have this gate that kind of comes in like so. And then I have the top of the gate kind of coming in visible here. And really that needs to come down at more of an extreme angle. Yeah, so before I forget which line I want to keep, I'll just kind of erase those, and that works pretty good. I know that I have this kind of board coming up here, and then this is going to come across. And then this piece, which in all likelihood is made of several pieces of wood, but in my painting it's just one really well built curved piece of wood. That kind of comes in like so, and then we'll have our boards down in here. And then I can kind of sketch this now, since if you recall, I kind of couldn't figure out how I wanted to do this shadow last time. So that kind of comes in like this. So just a cast shadow on that. And then I've got another wall. I've got this wall that kind of comes across here. I know that I like this vine of some sort that's going to come in here like so, and then it's going to kind of overhang the wall a bit. Maybe this is honeysuckle or trumpet vine. It doesn't matter. You know, it's not that important of what it is. It's just we're going to suggest this kind of flowered vine kind of thing. And maybe I want that to kind of come out a little bit more there. But I like that. That's pretty good. I'm going to have kind of some sort of tree shape up here. And then I'm going to come in with those pine trees. And you'll notice how I'm just kind of scribbling these little pine trees in. That's exactly how I'm going to paint them in. I'm just going to use the tip and a little bit of the edge of my my brush later to paint these. So maybe they're a little further up in the mountains where we get a, you know, let's see, I don't quite want it that tall, maybe, I don't know. They get a little more water, so we've got some of these kind of trees. And that's going to come out kind of like so. And then I know, let's see, I want another kind of deciduous tree of some sort over here. And then I'm just going to put in kind of a mountain. I don't have one in my sketch, but I decided to add one when I was drawing this on my paper last time, so I'm going to put that back in. And then, you know, these hollyhocks are really simple because they're really just kind of squiggly kind of tower shapes. And then when we add paint, they'll start to look like hollyhocks. So they'll really come to life. So right now they look a little weird, but don't worry. Let's see, I think one thing I didn't do is I just had like 4 hollyhocks kind of lined up, and I didn't really like that. So we'll just add a few. Maybe this one's kind of gonna come in shorter. Maybe there's another one kind of sticking off the edge here. Sometimes I find it helpful to draw the whole thing. That way it makes sense later. And then I've got, let's see, maybe we'll have some other kind of flowering plant, whatever this was. I can't remember what we decided we were going to call it, but it doesn't matter. It's just a, you know, flowering plant. It'll be a variety of colors. I think in the other painting, it's It's, you know, yellows and oranges and pink. So it could be anything. Let's see. And we'll go back into some hollyhocks here. Maybe there's another one. I remember I accidentally painted over one with the wall color when I was putting that, you know, the wall in. I had a couple of hollyhocks somewhere that I didn't. So let's see. We'll have that one kind of come down like so. And again, remember, this is just suggesting these shapes. I'm not worried about drawing actual flowers. You know, we're not, this is not, you know, the whole thing is what's interesting, not just the let's see, we got a shorter little one. Wow, I'm somehow smeared some paint on that. Didn't even realize it, so maybe it's a good thing I'm starting over. I don't know. I can fix it though. But just realized some of the work I did kind of, let's see, that comes across there. Got another kind of tall hollyhock. You know, sometimes these things can get, I've had hollyhocks growing in my yard that were like 6 feet tall, so and maybe you know, there's some shorter ones in front here that might be different color. I'm basically drawing these in to make it a little more filled in versus what I had in the other one, just to make it a little more interesting. Maybe there's one that's back behind this stuff too, so kind of like that. Okay, so there we go. We've got our hollyhocks. We've got everything drawn in. I'm gonna now put this over here out of the way, and I'm gonna come over here, and I realize that I do not have any water on my. So I'm just gonna grab this and get water on my palette. Let's put water in everything. Okay, and make sure that I get a little extra in case I need it. All right, so let's see here. Make sure you can see all of the palette as well, or at least most of it. So if you recall, we started off, let's see, where did my brush go? There it is. We started off with just a initial, the first thing we did, because it was a fairly short, we were finishing up that other painting, so it was a fairly short work session on this painting. That first night we worked on it. So we started with, you know what, I'm just going to kind of clean some of this up because we'll get to it later. So I'm just going to add a little water here and give myself a nice clean surface. A lot of times I don't, but in this case I kind of want to. Clean my brush off. Grab a Kleenex here and just kind of wipe that up so I don't have any. So I just have a nice clean area to work. I like that when I'm working with some of these brighter colors. You know, once I start adding in greens and stuff, then it's usually a good idea to kind of clean a part of it, at least a part of the palette off. That's pretty good. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start with a little lemon yellow. I've got a nice little puddle of lemon yellow. And I've got a nice little, I'll do a nice little puddle of permanent yellow deep right there. And I'll definitely be using permanent yellow orange. Now, all of these are equivalent to, you know, these are Holbein colors, but they're equivalent to, if I wanted to, you know, if you're using cadmium colors, it'd be cadmium yellow, lemon, you know, or lemon yellow, cadmium lemon yellow. I can't remember how they write it. Some paint manufacturers do it a little differently than others, and I see that I've kind of screwed up there. Not that it'll really hurt anything, but I'm just going to start over there. I just want to make sure that it starts off kind of pure at the moment. So this would be cadmium lemon yellow, this would be cadmium yellow deep, and this would be cadmium orange. Same kind of thing. So we're going to come back over here, and let's see if I can kind of zoom in on what I'm doing here. We'll just move that up, and I'm basically going to start here. I'm gonna paint this wall, and it's an adobe wall. But if you know me, you know that I don't like to paint adobe tan or brown because that's boring. So I'm going to start off with a little lemon yellow, and this all just goes back to that, you know, multicolored wash that I'm so fond of. So I've got a little lemon yellow down there. It's a nice kind of nice and wet wash. We're going to add a little permanent yellow deep, and I'm going to even use a little opera. If you'll recall, this is the opera right here. I'm just going to grab a little of that too, so I'm just going to make a nice little wash over here, just so I have some and I can drop some in just in a few spots. Now that looks a little weird, obviously, because I just put 3 little blobs of paint, but if I clean my brush out and then just add water and get those to kind of run, then I get, and I kind of move them around a little bit, then I get some nice little color variation in there. So let's switch over. I'm going to switch over now to a little permanent yellow orange down in here on the bottom, and then we'll just kind of bring that up and touch the top of, or the bottom, I should say, that little bead of water as we're coming in. So we have a nice easy wash. And then I'm just going to use a thirsty brush to kind of pick that up. All I'm doing is, if you recall, I'm just squeezing out my brush so it's damp but not dry, and it'll pick up that excess bead of water. So yeah, not too shabby for our first wash, I think. I might add just a wee bit more opera just in there, just to give us some variation. I could even, and I think I will, because I think I did it on the last one, I'm going to add just a wee bit of green. You know, sometimes you get that kind of growth of, I don't know if it's mildew or mold or moss or whatever. You kind of get that on the north side of you know, where something's a little moist or something, and or it's just grime or whatever on a wall. So I'm just going to add just a wee bit of green to that as well, just to make it a little more interesting. And that's permanent green number 1. So that's that nice light grass green that I used there. All right, so let me just make sure I get some of that. And going to hit that with a dryer. And I'm also going to, while I'm doing that, I'm going to try and, I don't want it to dry too much because I want to see if I can't get a little bit of blossoms to form. So I'm going to take kind of just the shine off real quick. So it's wet, but not shiny. And I'm going to just add a little bit of water in some spots. I may have gotten it a little too dry, but we'll see. No, that's doing some stuff. And really what that does is it just adds texture. I'm using that blossoming effect that so many people don't like to add texture to this wall, because you know that a stucco wall is going to have a nice texture to it. So you can kind of see that forming. It's a little light, but we'll come in here with a dryer again. At least get this side. Mostly dry. So then I'm gonna work on the initial wash for this gate. And if you recall, that was all, let me zoom back out. That was all Andrews turquoise, cerulean blue, peacock blue. I may have used a little verditer blue as well, and then I used opera. I also used, which I don't think you can see, quinacridone gold, which is this one right here in the corner, the lower right hand corner of your screen. So I used a little bit of that. So I'm not going to worry too much about this being on top of that. But I am going to start with a little quinacridone gold. So I'm just going to pull that over here. It's close enough to that orange that even if it's on a little bit, that's okay. I'm going to come back over here. I want to make sure that I pick up a lot of water, so it's mostly water. And I'm just going to kind of start here in the middle. And really all this is where I want faded wood, you know, the paint to have, not faded wood, but the faded paint to have wood showing through. So I'm just putting a little bit of that down first, and then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to grab a little cerulean blue. And I like cerulean blue. It's a little chalky, a little more opaque. It's kind of fun, especially for these kind of blue garden gates. And I'm going to put a little, that may be a little too much. I put a little bit there, and then I decided it was too much paint, so I just cleaned my brush out, and now I'm just using water to kind of move that around. And I'm going to paint over both of these. Let's go. I'm going to switch over to a little Andrews turquoise, which you can see is a little more turquoisey. And I have to paint quick because it's hot here in the studio, and I've got multiple fans going, and I want all of this to stay wet. So we'll just kind of bring in a little Andrews turquoise there. Maybe we'll come in with a little peacock blue over here. So we'll just have, that's peacock blue there. A little bit much in that department, so we'll just kind of bring that up here. I can see, you know, this is drying really fast on me, so even though I'm using a lot of water, the fans are definitely drying it out. I'm going to add a little opera in some spots. And I know you're thinking, well, this is a blue gate, why are you adding pink to that? But it just, even though we're adding this pink as kind of an accent color, it's almost a, well, it is a complementary color almost, and it just makes it a little more vibrant, makes it more interesting. I'm gonna move back to the Andrews turquoise, I think, over here, and just kind of pull that in and down, maybe a little more there, maybe some of this verditer blue too. So this is a chalkier, kind of lighter paint, more kind of a gray blue. And that just also gives it that kind of, you know, that chalky blue paint that they use on doors like this and gates. So it just gives that feel. And having all these multiple different blues, even though it's, you know, really probably a gate that was painted with a single, you know, single color, after it's been in the sun, especially the New Mexico sun, for a really long time, you know, these other colors kind of appear. I think I'm gonna grab a little more quinacridone gold and throw that in there. Let that kind of dissipate through there and dislocate some of those blues. Same with the opera. I might add a little bit of that to just dissipate some of that. So it's really just maybe just a wee bit up there. It's just a multicolored wash, very similar to what we did here, only with blues and more blues and stuff. You know, there's a little bit of gold in there, but you know, that quinacridone gold, but and opera, which is similar to this other wash, but now we're using blues and turquoises and stuff like that to kind of get that blue door effect. And you know, the opera kind of mixes with these blues and makes a bit of a purple, you know, a violet. And I don't even mind, you know, these are little granules of paint. I can, once this dries, if they bother me, I can brush them off, or you know, let me kind of zoom in, you can kind of see them a little better. They'll brush off if I want them to, or if I like them, I'll just leave them on there. Sometimes you can go in and kind of push them around and they dissolve a little bit more, but in this case I'm okay with that. You know, it just, in my opinion, it kind of adds a little more texture. Maybe we'll add just a wee bit more of this opera in here, so it's just a wee bit brighter, just a little bit more water, and there we have it. That's our initial wash of the blue gate. Now obviously there's some details and things we'll add later, but this is kind of, you know, our initial little bit here, our foreground. And I'm gonna hit that with a dryer as well, and I probably will, I'll do the same thing I kind of did over here. I'm gonna hit it so it's no longer shiny. Hit it so it's no longer shiny, and then I'm going to add a little bit more water and see if I can get some blossom, because when you add blossoms to this, it kind of makes it look like peeling paint, which is always fun. Maybe not so much if it's your actual gate, but in a painting it looks really cool. So we'll just see what happens there. If something happens, cool. If nothing happens, that's okay too. But you can kind of see some really interesting color combinations that if I tried to mix those on my palette, I would just end up with mud. But because I let them mix on their own on the paper, I got these really cool, interesting colors. So we'll just let that dry and kind of hit it with a dryer again. Pick up some of this excess as well. Okay, So I'm going to switch brushes only because normally I would paint that with a flat brush, but it's a fairly small space. So I'm going to switch to my number 8 round. I'm going to do another, here you can see that's dry, so I can kind of, some of that opera, you know, stuff, I just brush that right off. And I think that's, it's still damp, but it's dry enough. And basically we're going to kind of do the same thing. Now I'm going to have to work quickly within this entire space until I get to here, and then I can kind of you know, do the rest. Let me get rid of that line and complete the wall there. These are a little dark, so I'm just going to hit them. I'm just going to roll my kneaded eraser over them before I start painting, because the minute I put yellow paint on the top of these things, they get locked in. Now I can usually, well, that's still damp, so I don't want to do it, but I can, if it's blue or some other color that doesn't have yellow in it, you can usually erase underneath. So I could go back on, probably not here because that quinacridone gold kind of, I don't know what it is about yellow paint, but it locks the pencil marks in. So I just want to lighten those up just a skosh so they're not quite as prevalent. I drew them on, they're pretty dark. Okay, so we're going to come in. Again, I'm going to start with a little lemon yellow. You can see I still have that, that nice, couple nice puddles. I've got the, so we're going to use these same colors plus some opera to do the same thing. So I'm going to come in with a little lemon yellow, and I'm just going to start over here and work my way this way. I think the last time I started over here and worked my way that way, and I was dragging my hand through the paint. So I'm just going to put a little lemon yellow up in here, and then I'm just going to kind of paint around these hollyhocks. So I've got a little lemon yellow coming in. Now I'm going to want to switch over to a little permanent yellow deep. And I didn't even clean my brush out. I just went over and grabbed it. I had a nice puddle there, so it's just slightly darker than the lemon yellow. So I didn't really feel like I needed to clean the brush. I just needed to switch colors. So I grabbed a little of this permanent yellow deep. And I'm kind of working my way around here. Same with here, I need to kind of paint around these, and then I'm going to switch over to a little permanent yellow orange down in these spots. Just, you know, a little variation. I might even add some up in there. I'll come around. I'm not too worried about how these plants, in this case, you know, we're calling them hollyhocks, which is, you know, kind of what they are, but I'm not too worried about what they are. And I'm not too worried about really making sure that I'm following that shape that I drew, as long as it's close. I'm going to add a little opera. As long as it's close, I'm going to be happy with it. So obviously that's too much, so I can come back in with just a wet, you know, clean brush. I'll just go in and clean it in my water bucket, and then add water to it, so it's just a little less apparent. We just want it to be subtle. So I'm going to come down here with, let's see, that's a weird shape. I'm going to come down here with this is permanent yellow orange. If you don't have that and you have cadmium orange, that's what I'm using, or its equivalent. Let's see, I'm going to come in with some permanent yellow deep again. So again, that could be cadmium yellow deep, and it's just a nice light orange. That's really all that is. So we'll just kind of come along in here where I'm not too terribly worried about a lot of color variation because this space is so small, but I do want some. So I have permanent yellow deep in there. Now I'm switching over to this permanent yellow orange. And maybe I want to use some of that permanent green number 1, just a wee bit. Just gonna get a little bit and just kind of add some of that in a few spots. So I added a blob of it there, but now you can see I've cleaned my brush out and I'm just adding water to dissipate that, because I don't want it to look like a blob of green. I just want it to be kind of a subtle little area where there's a little green in the stucco. Okay, so let's come back over here. I'm going to use permanent yellow orange again. I cleaned my brush out and then went back to the palette. I think I'm going to switch over to that permanent yellow deep as well. So I cleaned my brush out because I was using a darker color, and now I'm switching back to a lighter color. So I want to make sure that I've cleaned that out. And you know, I'm using the tip of the brush to kind of work my way around some of these shapes, but then when I get into a bigger space, I can use the side of my brush. So you see I'm pressing down. So, you know, I'm kind of working with the brush if my finger's the paper. Sometimes I'm painting like this, but then other times I'm pushing down like that onto my paper. So I'm putting pressure on and getting a wider stroke with the brush. I'm going to add a little, just going to come down here with a little permanent yellow red. Permanent yellow red. Permanent red. Alizarin crimson would be a nice color to use here if you don't have red. I'm just doing this so I have a little bit of variation. Maybe I'll put a little there as well. Obviously that's too much, so I want to, again, get my brush wet and just kind of move it around. That's all this is just another little variation. I'm going to clean my brush out, and I'm going to go up here and grab a little lemon yellow. I want that up here at the top where it's the brightest. And then we'll just kind of keep moving along here. Maybe grab a little opera while I'm at it. Plop a little of that in there. Just for, you know, color variation and changes. Let's come in here with a little permanent yellow orange. And maybe this comes down kind of like that. A little more permanent yellow orange down in here. Permanent yellow deep. And I'm just kind of working my way around these flowers. And this is just to get to the point where we started last week. Or not last week, but on Monday. Let's see, let's come in with a little of that orange. So again, permanent yellow orange. I was just using permanent yellow deep. We're gonna put a little of that orange down in here. Uh-oh, lost my towel. See, I just spattered on there. It's okay, that won't hurt anything. Let's come back with a little permanent with the yellow or lemon yellow up here. At the top, I kind of want to keep that brighter yellow up at the top. Kind of work my way down. Maybe just a bit of that green as well. Just see, you can see it's just barely putting a little bit of that in there. Just gives it a little slight green tint. Let's go back in with this. Oops, that's not what I wanted. That was permanent yellow deep. Permanent yellow orange. I want a little permanent yellow deep. Although the orange will kind of soften out into a very similar, you know, a very similar shade. Is the, you know, the more water you add, the closer it gets to that permanent yellow deep. even if it is the permanent yellow orange. That's what I'm using there. So we'll just kind of come in like so. Let's see. Okay, on the other side of this, I'm going to come in with a little lemon yellow. A little permanent yellow deep. Maybe some more right in there, just so it doesn't look like that color stops right here and then a different color picks up. So I need to match both sides of this plant so it looks similar. So that's permanent yellow deep coming in there, mixing with the lemon yellow, and then we'll come in with the orange. We'll just kind of come in like so. There's just a bit of that wall showing through there. There's these, you know, this one, there's a overlapping one here, and then there's this one that almost overlaps as well. So just kind of pulling that in like so. Now I'm moving fairly quickly because I got to get this whole thing to that point where we stop. So, you know, feel free obviously to rewind or fast forward if you know, this is about the 40-minute mark. I'll try and make a note of that at the beginning of the video. So there we are. We're caught up to where we were. We didn't get that far, if you recall. So I'm going to dry this really quick. And I actually want to add a little, before I do that, I want to add a little, I realize I don't have as much variation in color over here, so I want to add a little opera. I don't need a lot, just a little, and then I'm going to just hit that with water so it kind of spreads around. I can even pick some of that back up. If I feel like I can make it that thirsty brush, if I feel like there's too much the permanent yellow-orange down in here, maybe it's just a bit too bright, too dark, whatever. Yeah, so just kind of so, all right, so that's done. Let me just dry this real quick. It's fairly humid today, so even though some stuff is drying fairly fast, if you get enough water on there, it takes a while to dry. So it's handy to have this hair dryer. Although I have noticed that it makes the paint a little less intense than if I let it dry on its own. All right. There we go. So yeah, it can kind of, in my opinion, I mean, this could be just in my head. I don't know, but it seems like that it does make it a little lighter. Okay, so now I have to remember what we did on Monday. So we got to this point. I'm trying to remember what we did first. I think I went in and I worked on the foliage for a lot of this. And I may have even done another wash on this. well, I know I did another wash on this, plus we did the shadow. So I think what I'm gonna start with, just because it's kind of fun, I'm gonna do another, I'm gonna do another little wash to differentiate between here and here. And I'm gonna add another bit on top of what we've got. No, you know what? First I'm gonna start off with the green foliage. That's what I'm gonna do. All right, so green foliage. So I'm gonna switch over to my smaller number 6 round. I also need some more water because my throat is dry. Let me grab a drink of water and maybe my apple. Refill my thermos really quick. Okay, so let's start with that green foliage. So yeah, I'm going to use my number 6 round, and I'm gonna let me just bring us back over here. I'm gonna start with permanent green number 1. Maybe a little hooker's green and permanent green number 2. And then I may even, you know, I've got this hooker's green royal blue mix up here that I made the other day. Basically it's hooker's green, which is this guy right here, and royal blue, which is that guy right there. So I'm going to start with a little permanent green number 1. And I remember now, I used a little lemon yellow, and I kind of blended the two to get a nice, really light green. So let me just kind of, so we have this nice grass green right here, and then I've got lemon yellow right here, and I'm just gonna kind of mix the two. I want a little bit more green in there, but you can see it's just a lighter green than permanent green number 1, and that's what I'm gonna start with. All right, so let's come back over here. Maybe we'll zoom in so you can kind of see a little bit better. Not using zoom, which ironically does not have a zoom feature. I can actually zoom in using my phone. Okay, so I'm going to come in with that permanent yellow green, or permanent yellow lemon, and permanent green number 1 mix, and I'm just going to kind of make it up. And I'm going to paint around where I want. I'm going to leave a lot of white where I want flowers to you know, the flowers to be. So I want a little there. Maybe I want a really big hollyhock flower there. Let's come in with a little permanent green number 2 now. So I'm just going to grab a little of that and add that to the mix. Maybe that one up there is a little too light because I got a lot of water in it, so I'm just going to add a little more green to it. It doesn't matter. It's all, I can add more water or pick up some of that water. It'll lighten it. It'll darken it. Whatever I want. So I've got, yeah, kind of a nice little thing. Let's switch back to that permanent green number 1 lemon yellow mix. But I am going to add just a wee bit more green to it. So it's just got to remember to clean my brush out every time I go to dip into the yellow, because I've contaminated that so many times, and I end up having to clean it out. So I don't have a very, you know, I don't want a very green. The lemon yellow kind of sometimes has a green tint anyway, so I don't want to overdo that. So let's see, I'm going to have some of this. It's going to kind of come down. Maybe there's a big flower here as well. some flowers. We'll come in with a little hooker's green now. Down in here, I think, just give it a little darker. Darker foliage down here towards the bottom of the plant. Now, when I get down here close to the gate, I'm going to kind of use the gate. I want to make that a pretty sharp line right there to define, to use the gate to sort of, you know, define or to use the foliage to help define the top of the gate. So it's the bottom of the foliage, so that's defining the top of the gate. Let's see here. We'll have another little. So I switched back to that green number 1 lemon yellow mix. Just gives me a little, and I can even go in with just green number 1 sometimes. So if I want to just use green number 1, maybe it's over there. There's kind of a flower like that. Maybe this guy's a big flower there. Foliage over to the, you know, over to the side on this one. I don't know. I'm trying to make it random. As we all know, it's really hard because we're human. We try to, even if we try to make things random, it's hard for us to do that. We end up with patterns. It's just one of those things. And this is going to look really weird anyway until we add the colors, you know, the pinks and the burgundies and whatnot for the flowers. So don't stress if it looks weird, because it's just gonna look weird. Let's see, maybe we have a little sticking up there into the. There's a little flower there. Maybe one over here. We'll just connect those two. That's that hooker's green that I've connected. And then I grabbed a little permanent green number 2 right here, just to be slightly different. I am going to also use a little peacock blue in a few spots. That just adds another variation, gives us a slightly deeper blue or green. And I can even add, if you recall, I've mixed this right here, which is quinacridone violet mixed with a little royal blue. So this is quinacridone violet by itself right here. You can see it's a lot redder. Here's the royal blue up here. Oh, well, you can't even see that, but you know what dark blue looks like. So I've taken this and added blue to it to give me this nice violet, rich violet. So if I come back over here, I can even add a little of that just to give us a little vibrancy to some of this. So right, you know, on camera it's going to look very dark, but it's not that dark. So we'll just add a little bit of that here and there, and it just makes it a little more vibrant. So let's see, I'm going to say we've got a little flower up there. Maybe this one there. Let's come in with the permanent green number 2, or actually this is just permanent green number. I was using the lemon yellow green number 1 mix, and then I just grabbed just permanent green number 1 just to add a little more darker green, you know, a darker hue in there. Let's grab a little hooker's green now. And these, you know, these little white spots don't have to actually look like flowers. They just, you know, they're just a suggestion, just an impression of those, you know, of hollyhocks. So they don't have to be any particular shape. Let's come in back in with that light green up in here. Just a little bit of it, maybe. I do want a little permanent green number 2 though up in there, just to break that up a little bit. And I'm just going to continue that around over here. Okay, so there's our kind of our first grouping of hollyhocks. If I want, I can add, you know, maybe I need a little more dark stem kind of showing through some spots there. It's, you know, doesn't matter. It's just the suggestion. Now, so these flowers, whatever this is, it's a kind of a bushier plant. I'm just going to get rid of some pencil lines before now that that's dry. Well, I don't want to get rid of all of them because I had this idea that that was I need that to remind myself that there's another plant right there. Maybe one right in there or something. You know, those could be different colored plants in front. So that's really all I'm leaving those there for. Okay, so this is, you know, a different kind of flowering plant. It's more bushy than tall. And I'm just going to come in here, and again, I'm just going to leave random, or at least I'm going to try to make them random, little areas of white, and those will be what, you know, the flowers, you know, that'll be where we paint the flowers. That's why I couldn't erase it. It was green. So there's that permanent yellow lemon, permanent green #1 mix. If we recall, the light's coming from over here, so I have to kind of remember that, and I wasn't really paying attention to that before. So I have to kind of think about that. I know that I want, you know, this to be fairly light. It's going to be, you know, kind of up here in the top, so this foliage needs to be nice and light. So you're thinking, well, why are you starting that way? No reason. I just decided that's where I wanted the lighter color to go in, and I had some on my brush, so let's see. I also want some in here. So all I'm doing is just painting around the flowers, basically. Obviously, let's see, I'm going to use a little Hooker's green here. Obviously, if I had used masking fluid, this would make this much easier. Although you do have to kind of paint around the masking fluid as well. It just makes it much harder to get, well, impossible to get paint where you don't want it, which is a good thing. But, you know, I'd have to wait for it to dry. And yes, this is a little time consuming, this kind of painting around where you think things might be. Let's come in with a little permanent green #2. Painting around where things might be, but I'm actually doing something, and I'm not sitting here waiting for the masking fluid to dry. So a lot of times I won't use masking fluid. A lot of times I do, but for class I'd just soon not, because you know, and then again, you know, we're not in class, so I don't know if you guys have masking fluid yet, or, you know, have gone out and gotten some. It is a good thing to have. You know, I use where did it go? I don't know where it went. Oh, here's one. I use these mask pins. I like them a lot. And they have this nice little point. This one's empty. That's they have these nice little points that make it really easy to apply. And then, you know, there's a little needle that slides into it to help it keep it clear. Oh, here we go. This is I think this is the one you can get at Hobby Lobby, the fine line resist pin. This one doesn't have the top on it. It's over here. I kind of like this because it comes with this secondary top. But you can see there's oops, this is the one that broke. see here. This is the new one. You can see that this one actually has a metal tip, which is really cool. And then it's got the same kind of, a little wire that, of course, I can't get that back in, but it's got the same kind of wire, and then that screws down. I like this one a little bit better than the mask pen version because you can actually take this apart and clean it out, unlike the mask pen one. So this one's kind of cool. I can take this whole thing apart and clean it out because you can see here, masking fluid will dry up no matter what. And a nice, a little thing I learned from Carl, no, was it Carl? No, Carl doesn't use, it was from Tom Lynch. He pointed out that it's not a good idea to shake your, don't shake masking fluid. All the brands do this. Don't shake them because that causes them to solidify. So they don't work as well. Let's see. Let's move this over a little bit more so we can see what we're doing. So that's just something I picked up from one of the workshops I was in. Don't shake masking fluid, even if it's a different brand than mask pen or fine line resist pen, whatever. What's another brand name for? I don't like how big that is. I'm gonna break that up into several little smaller. Same with this one and that one. That's gonna be several smaller little areas. I can't think of any of the other brands of masking fluid, but that's okay. It's not important. Just don't shake it. Yes, some will get, it'll collect a little bit in the bottom, but that's okay. Don't shake it up. That activates it and gets it to cure, and you don't want that. I used to have this giant thing of whatever brand it was. I don't remember what brand of masking fluid it was. Frisket, that was one of the brands I was trying to think of. I don't remember what brand this was, but it was a giant tub of it, and I couldn't understand why it was always starting to get hard inside the bottle. I just thought it was age, and it could have been part of it, but it was also because I was shaking it up. I was trying to mix it up, so I was getting all those hard rubber particles that it forms, and they were causing the rest of it to cure. I'm just going to zoom back out a little bit, and so now we're going to start back on these hollyhocks, and so I'm just going to kind of, maybe the stem's kind of coming down in the middle here on this one. I mean, the stem's in the middle of all those, but flowers were covering it up. And you can see it's not a lot of, I got a little bit much over here, but it's not a lot of paint that I'm using. Just a tiny little amount. Just painting in between where I think flowers should be. It's just a little stem and some, maybe a leaf or two, small leaves. That could be a little bit of a leaf there. I switched over. That was the lemon yellow permanent green #1 mix. which seems a little light. So I'm just going to come in with a little permanent green number 1. But I had switched over to a little permanent green number 2 down in here. Let's see. I'm going to use a little hooker's green. Maybe there's another little flower there. I want a little, I'm going to add a little of that violet mix down in here where maybe it's a little darker in a few spots. And some of that's still wet, so that blends in quite nicely. Other places, like right here, it dried on me, so I can't add too much there. Maybe a little in here. That dried on me pretty good too, so we'll just kind of add some water. If I cover up some of those little flower, blank areas that were going to be flowers, that's okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll pull a little of that down in here as well. Just gives us some darker foliage in a few spots. Let's see, I'm going to kind of clean that up. I want that edge to be right in there to be kind of clean. All right, back to the, ooh, did not clean my brush out enough. Back to that permanent green number 1 lemon yellow mix with maybe just a bit more permanent green number 1 than I had before. Just so it's not quite, I think it was just a wee bit too light. So maybe we'll leave all that kind of open up there. There's a whole slew of buds or something kind of up top there. Let's switch to that permanent green number 2. Add just a little bit darker foliage in some spots. Go back to the hooker's green. And now I can kind of define the top of this wall as well. So all this is just kind of switching back and forth between these greens, and maybe every now and then adding a little a little violet in there just to make it a little more vibrant in some spots. That was a little too much water. Had a little too much of that violet in there. And now so yeah, just switching back and forth. What I was saying is I had a little too much violet and then I had a little too much water. That can happen every now and then. You just make your brush into a thirsty brush, squeeze out all the moisture you can, so it's just damp, and it'll wick that that paint right up. So let's see, maybe that one kind of there. Let's go to the, so that was that mix of lemon yellow and green number 1. Now I've got a little green number 2 added to a few spots. And we'll come in with a little hooker's green down here in the bottom. And, you know, this can be a little time consuming, I know, but it works really well. It's kind of relaxing. This is the only time I'm, you know, most of the time I got a little bit of an adrenaline rush when I'm painting watercolors, just because they can be a little exciting. Because sometimes you don't exactly know what's going to happen. You have an idea maybe that you know what's going to happen, but you're not entirely sure. So little permanent green number 2. So that was that lemon yellow green number 1 mix. Now I'm just using green number 2. Well, it's just, you know, kind of a slightly darker grass green. You know, green number 1 is a light grass green, and then green number 2 is a slightly darker one, kind of a medium green. And then let's see. I'm going to keep going with the green number 2 for a while, just a little bit longer. And then we'll get into a little of the hooker's green, because I've got this secondary plant right here that that's gonna be a different colored flower, I think, than this guy here. Maybe this has got more foliage down here. You know, as you start to get to the bottom of the hollyhocks, there'll be bigger leaves and stuff like that. There's still gonna be some flowers, but maybe not quite as many are visible, just because they start up a little higher usually, and then you just get the leaves at the bottom. Let's go in with that permanent green number 1 yellow mix, kind of right in here. This tells us we've got a new another shorter hollyhock. Kind of in here. Like so. Hey, only a few more to go. And then we can do that. But we'll take a break. We'll do something here. We'll take a break, because this can get a little tedious. Just kind of, and I could be going faster, I suppose. I was kind of going slow, and I added a whole slew more plants than I had before in the other painting. Okay. Let's see. Let's go with a little. You know what? I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna grab a little indigo down in here, maybe, because I've got another little short plant right there. Maybe there's a bit of a dark area here, so it's a really dark green. Same with down in here. I mean, I know this is dry, but maybe I want just a bit more. And you can see I'm just using the tip of my brush, making little tick marks here and there just to add texture, add a little shadow in some spots. Let's switch back. This has got, this will be another little plant here. I switched to the lemon yellow green number 1 mix, and then I switched to just a little hooker's green. Let's see, let's switch over because I got another little hollyhock there in the middle, that right here, so I got one there. So I want this, well, actually that side would probably be, well, it doesn't matter. It could be lighter, it could be darker. I'm going to make it a little of both. I got this guy coming in. Just a little bit of foliage coming in. There, like so. Let's get into that slightly darker stuff down in here. And we want to kind of keep that line fairly clean. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to be pretty good. I'm gonna plug the camera in just to make sure that I didn't go dead on me. Let's see. Just a couple more of these hollyhocks and then we'll move back down in here. And so, and then when they're dry, we'll go in and add some flowers and that kind of stuff. Again, I'm sorry I forgot to push record on Monday. I can't remember the questions you guys asked me, but I remember they were good ones. That doesn't really help, does it, though? You know, let's see, I'm going to grab a little of that Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix. I want this to be a little bit darker feeling over in here. Maybe coming up into there. Maybe just a bit over here as well. Just kind of breaks that up a little bit. And then I'm going to come in with a little permanent green number 2. Just to and then just a couple more. So a little more of that permanent green lemon yellow mix right in here. This one's going to be a little bit lighter. And then we can move into, so that was that lighter mix. And then I'm just going to move into a little Hooker's Green, I think, right in here. Just to be the dark at the bottom there. Not quite as dark as some of this other stuff, but that's okay. And I'm just going to feel like a lot of this would be foliage down in here. And not so many flowers. As you get lower on the plants, there's fewer flowers. Okay, this last little guy. And this one's less important. I'm not too worried about it. Only because it's on the edge. It'll, you know, likely end up being under a mat. But that's okay. All right, so there we go. That's that. Now, it looks a little weird with all these little white blobs and whatnot, but But once we add color to the flowers, it'll look pretty good. Very thirsty. Let's see, that casts a little bit of a shadow there, so I don't want that. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do, well, you know, let's wait for this to dry, and then we'll come up here, we'll do that. Then we'll add some color to the flowers and stuff like that. So we have our nice initial wash, but we need to differentiate between this plane and this plane. And then we also need to add this cast shadow. This looks very flat right now. We want to really emphasize the fact that it's thicker, has some mass to it. So we want to add some more color down in here. I'll bring back the other painting. You can see we've still got nice light up here, but then we've added more color down in here. We've added detail to this fence, so let's work on that. So, I'm going to move to my number 8 brush. I could even use my number 10, but I'm going to use the number 8 round. And I need to think about the colors that I'm going to use. And so I'm going to come over here and show you. I remember using a little pyrrole orange, which you may not have. So, if you don't have pyrrole orange, just a nice bright orange, even more of the cadmium orange. Or I remember I used a little permanent red, which is this, and I used some other colors. So mostly oranges and reds. I know I used a little opera. I know I used quinacridone magenta, or quinacridone violet, I'm sorry, which is this, which on camera just looks dark, but it's that violet right there. So I'm going to start with a little pyrrole orange, and I'm just going to clean up a little spot here. Not too big, I don't need to worry about it too much, but so pyrrole orange is like this nice bright orange, but then as you add water, it turns into this kind of salmon peach, and it's really fun. So I'm gonna grab, I'm gonna come back over here. Let me just kind of zoom back in on that part of the painting. And I'm just going to get a nice thin wash of this. I don't need a lot. And I'm going to kind of come in here and start adding a little texture. I'm not too concerned if there's some lines there. I mean, I want to smooth out some of them, like, kind of come in and do stuff, just kind of roll my brush through that edge to soften it with the, it's a clean brush. I've just got water in it, and I can kind of roll that through. So I got a little Pyrrole Orange. I think I'm going to come in with a little Permanent Red. Permanent Red is a nice bright red. Obviously a little darker than the oranges we were using. So I'm just going to kind of come in there with some of that. You can see though it's a really pretty red. And then I want to mix it up. I'm going to grab a little, you could use alizarin crimson. I'm going to grab a little quinacridone violet and place that down in here. And all I'm doing is just kind of making another, in fact, I want a little of that over here, I think, just because I know this is going to be casting a bit of a shadow, so I want it a little cooler on that side. I grab a little more of the Pyrrole Orange. I can even grab a little of the permanent quinacridone violet and royal blue mix if I wanted a little darker down here at the bottom. Not too much. I just want a little bit of that. So we'll just kind of lighten that up though. I just want a little hint of that. Let's go back to that permanent red. Use a little of that over here. Maybe a little more Pyrrole Orange in here. That, when you get it next to the permanent red, makes some really cool kind of, it makes a really cool color that you can't mix. Just kind of soften this with a clean brush. Let's go back into a little quinacridone violet over here. Just gives me that nice little, maybe a little more permanent red. Like I said, alizarin crimson, permanent magenta would be a nice, it's slightly lighter than the violet. We'll just grab a little permanent magenta and throw that in here. Just slightly more red and lighter than the quinacridone violet. Maybe I'll even grab a little of that Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix. I added a little green over here that's now kind of disappeared. So I'm just going to add a little bit more with that slightly darker shade. I don't, obviously I'm adding a lot of water, so it really thins it out. But you can see it's already starting to add some volume to this. This is still fairly light up here, and then it's starting to curve around. Let's come in more of that red right in there. I really like that permanent magenta that I put in, so I want to just do a little bit more in a few spots. Come back in with some Pyrrole Orange. Pyrrole Orange is a Daniel Smith color. That's where I got it. It's Pyrrol. What's funny is my mom and I got this because we thought that's what a color that Carl Purcell was using, but he was using burnt Pyrrole Orange, which is slightly different. But we liked this color so much. We liked the color he was using too. We just never got around to ordering that. And we ended up liking this Pyrrole Orange. One thing to be a little careful with Pyrrole Orange is it does stain. It is a staining color, so you have to be a little careful. I usually use it kind of at the end when I'm not planning on lifting anything in particular. So that's where I have a tendency to use it. Let's come in with just a wee bit more of that lemon yellow right up in here. Oop, I gotta be careful because I got green paint right there. It's still wet. Or is it? Is it just water that I got up there? It is just water. And then I want maybe just a touch more of that red. I could even come in, even though it's slightly darker, I'm going to come in with a little permanent yellow deep right over in here. Just give that, it's so vibrant, it really adds to that. I just like the color cast that it causes. So, but I feel like this is giving us some good volume. I want a little permanent magenta. Over here. That was getting a little light. I plopped some water on there and it formed a nice blossom, but it had gotten a little light on the edge there. I'm just giving it a once over now. Stepping back from it and looking at it. And I think I'm fairly happy with that. I'm gonna dry it. And I'm gonna try and create some more blossoms here in a second. I'm just gonna dry it. I'm gonna hit it a little bit so I get rid of the kind of shininess. And then I'm just gonna drop, there we go. That one's good, but I don't want that shape, so. Yeah. And all this does is add texture to your stucco. Same with over here on the gate. You know, when you do something like this, it just adds a nice texture. Some places it won't work because it's a little too dry already. But even here where it's a little light, it may be hard to tell on camera, but getting some cool blossoms, and really we're just using those to our benefit. A lot of times, you know, they show up in places and you don't want them, but in this case we do. We get that nice texture. It's like a free bonus. So I'm gonna let that dry. I just wanted to get it a little drier. On camera, this looks a little more brown than it is. This is really kind of purple, less brown looking. I just put a nice fingerprint there, but that's all right. That's, you can tell, is still quite damp. But, you know, it's not too bad overall. Kind of zoom back out. Whoa, hello. There we go. Yeah, so we're going to do something similar here. We're going to come back in with another layer of blues and other colors. This initial layer is going to show through, but just like we've got those oranges and stuff still showing through this second glaze on top, we're going to do another glaze on top of this, except for here. This we're going to leave that light blue. Okay, so I'm just going to use my number 8. I'm going to hit just a little bit more right there. with the hair dryer. There we go. So let's see. I'm going to come in. I think I'm going to use a little Andrews turquoise at first. So I'm just going to grab a little of that. All I'm doing is I'm over here. Just got a little bit of that in the corner here. I do want to make sure I have plenty of water. I'm just going to come in and add another kind of glaze of this Andrews turquoise over the top here. Not too much. I can even come in, I'm going to grab some opera. I can come in, kind of enhance where I had that opera. Again, I want a lot of that glaze that's underneath there, like that quinacridone gold. I still want that to show through. I still want that glow. I can even come in with a little permanent yellow deep and just kind of accent that, add that little bit of whatever to it. A little bit of value change or color change. Even maybe some pyrrole orange. I didn't do that last week or on Monday, but that makes that salmon peach. So let's go back to a little peacock blue now. We're just going to grab a little of that because here's where it really gets important that I'm careful, because I want that to be a sharp edge all the way around there, or sharp-ish. There we go. And then as we move our way down into here, we just want to kind of blend that in. Let's see. Let's come in. I'm going to grab some more opera because that's what I've got going on here. Just going to make that pop a little bit more. Right in there. This will also get a shadow. Let's come in with that Andrews turquoise. I know I used some of that over here as well. I may have even used a little verditer blue if I remember right. Yeah, so that's a lot. Don't need that much. And there is going to be a shadow painted over this, so I don't need to worry about it too much, but I do want that hint of, you know, that plane, that change in plane to show up even with the shadows. So there we go. So there we have, let's come in with a little Andrews turquoise right in here just to kind of gray that up just a bit. I can even add a little, if I wanted to, I could come in with a little quinacridone gold on top as well. You know, I used a little of that permanent yellow deep over there. Kind of gave it a little more of an orange kind of look. Here, if I add a little quinacridone gold, it's a little more of a brownish yellow, which I like. It kind of looks like wood. Kind of peeking through the faded paint. Come in with a little more peacock blue right in here. Now, obviously that's too much. I just put some down and then I clean my brush out and used water. And then I actually wiped my brush off a little bit because I had a little too much water. So I wiped it off on my towel that I've got down here. Cheap Joe's used to send these out. It's kind of cool. When you place an order, they'd send you one of them. This is like the third. I think my mom had 3 or so of them. I had 2 or 3 of them. Most of them I just hang up because they're so nice. But this one got paint on it, so I decided to start using it. Maybe a little of the, let's see, is that cerulean blue? Maybe just a hint of that in here as well. A little cerulean blue in a few spots. It's a little more opaque, just slightly, and kind of chalky looking, very similar to the verditer blue. It's just a little brighter, I think. So we've got that going. So let's hit that with a dryer. and just enough to get the glaze off, or the glare off, that so it's not shiny anymore. And then we can try and add some texture to it as well. Oh, I went too long. I wasn't paying attention. Let's see, it's still a little wet, but it may be too dry. And that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Let's see. I stopped paying attention and I was looking at the other painting, trying to decide what I wanted to do next. Yep, I got it too dry. That's all right. No free texture today, and that's okay. So we'll just continue to dry that. And we'll come in, let's see, is that dry now? That's pretty close to dry. Let's just get that. All right. So I want to do the shadow, and I'm going to use these darker colors that I've already mixed. So this is quinacridone violet mixed with royal blue. So I've got that going here. I'll just grab a little more violet. I wanted it a little more on the red side than the blue side, which is what I've got. I can grab just a hint more blue, not too much. Mostly that's water, but there we go. Grabbed a little more. That's a nice, I've got indigo here, which I probably won't use, but I've got this nice Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix. So let me just grab a little more Royal Blue. That's a little on the bluer side. I want just a touch more green, so I'm gonna grab a little Hooker's Green and throw that in there. Yeah, that's perfect. And maybe a little Royal Blue. I know that I said that was indigo on top, underneath there, but I'm floating the Royal Blue on top of that, so shouldn't be a problem. So let's come back over here. I'm going to start with a little of this violet, and I'm actually going to have a lighter bit of shadow up here. So I'm just going to come in. I probably could have used the smaller brush because this is kind of a tiny little space, but I want this kind of light. It's shadow, but it's going to be slightly lighter than the shadow here because I still want to demonstrate that change in plane. So I have this kind of horizontal, somewhat plane. I mean, it's curved, but it's essentially horizontal, going back in space. And then I have this flat plane here. So I want to put that little bit of the violet there. I'm going to hit that with a dryer real quick to kind of get it pretty close to dry. Just so I can keep that. And then I'm going to start with that violet again. Over here. And this is just that cast, so I want it darker. It's just that cast shadow from this wall. If we remember, we discussed that this wall is running this way, and this wall is actually running perpendicular. We're just looking at it at an angle. It's running perpendicular to that other wall, somewhat. Okay, so I've got a little royal blue in with that violet. We'll just kind of move that around. I'm going to grab some of that Hooker's Green royal blue mix. That I'm going to put over here. I still want that color to pop through so it doesn't look like a different thing on top. But, and then once we add some of the details, that'll help out quite a bit. I'm going to switch back to the violet and royal blue mix over here, I think. And then maybe just some royal blue again down in here. Now, I think that may still be a little too light. So now that I've painted this slightly darker one, I know that I can take that a little darker. Although I'm going to wait till it kind of dries a little bit before I make that decision. Here, this is, let's see, let's add a little Hooker's Green royal blue mix right here. And just a bit more of that violet. Drop. All right. That's making kind of a weird shape that I don't like, so I'm just going to pick that up a little bit. Yeah, so let me dry that a little bit. I did end up with a little bit of texture over here. It might be hard to see so far zoomed out, but I'll let that hit that with the dryer just a bit and then see if I can't get a little, yeah, there we go. Over here in the shadow, we'll get a little peeled paint look. That's really what I like so much about using these blossoms to my benefit. You get so much cool texture out of them. It's a little hard to see on camera. Let me see if I can't zoom in for you. Yeah. So I can add just a wee bit. I'm going to come in with just a bit more of that violet up here, just to darken that just a wee bit. It was a little too light, but better to be too light than too dark. I always say, because once you go too dark, it's really hard to get back to the light. And then we can go in and add some of these details. Now I'm going to grab some of that indigo. It doesn't really matter. You could use Prussian blue, royal blue, Antwerp blue, any of those kind of dark gray blues. I'm going to use indigo. Maybe just add a wee bit of green to it. I'll show you what I'm doing over here. Let's see if I can get that glare off of there for a second. So I've got indigo, and then I'm just pulling some of this green over into it. So it's an indigo with a slight green cast. Oops. Yeah. That glare from the light is a little hard to get around, but we'll just bring this back over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting in some of these details. So I've got dry enough, yeah. I'm just going to come in. I've got this, so we're going to be able to kind of see the thickness of the board over here. So I'm just going to kind of come in like so. And that's going to be actually in shadow, so I want it pretty dark. I don't care if it's perfect, but then as we get over here, it's going to go back to thin. It's going to be a nice thin line. However, when we get over here, we're going to get a cast shadow, even though, yes, I know. Let's see, and we've got, I need to paint this line in before I get going too crazy. So this guy's coming kind of like that. And it's a nice thin line right there. And that board kind of comes across like so. That was a little too thick, but that's all right. It's a nice thing about having two of these. I can pick which one I like the best. And this may seem a little off, but remember, this wall is imperfect, but that side of the wall is flat, and this is coming into it. So it looks a little wonky, but that's the way it's going to look. I know I'm going to have these boards coming in, so I just want to kind of come in and paint those really quick. Let me move the camera over here so my hand's maybe not in the way as much. And I'm just using my number 6 brush, very tip of the brush, barely touching the paper. And if I miss a spot, that's okay. That's that. And yeah, I know it's already in shadow, but I'm going to paint, or at least over here it's already in shadow. So we're going to have a little bit of a double shadow just to show. Let me lighten that up, just to really help sell that thickness of this. So I've just got a little of that indigo. And I don't know if I like that as much as I like the previous one I worked on, but that's okay. Yeah. That just adds that, it gives us, it helps us sell the fact that this is a heftier piece of timber, this is a heftier piece of timber, and these are inset and thinner pieces of wood. There we go. Forgot that was so wet right there. Just come back in and like so. Yeah. And we'll add more texture and stuff to this as we go. So right now it looks a little too perfect, but that is okay. But because it's so close, we'll have a little bit of detail on that. But yeah, that's not too bad. I'm kind of happy with that. Let's zoom back out. I'm going to I'm gonna work on this, and then I'll work on, and then we'll start adding in color, and then I'll do the other these two trees and these 3 pine trees, and then we'll be caught up. Okay, so I'm going to go with my number 6 round, just because I am going to be painting around a lot of white area, and we're going to go back to that. We're going to use some similar colors, probably a little lighter, and I'm going to kind of work my way. I know this is going to be kind of light in here because the sun's coming from this direction. It's going to be a little light up in here, but there may be some light areas here. Even here where we have more volume because of the shape of this bush. So I'm not overly concerned with it being perfect or correct, even whatever that means. So I'm just gonna grab a little of that. I know I showed you this before, but let me zoom back out. All I'm doing really is mixing a little of that lemon yellow and the permanent green number 1. And then I'll make a little spot of just permanent green number 1 right here. And permanent green number 2. I've got Hooker's green up here. So, yeah. Okay. So let's come back over here. We'll zoom back in to that so you can see what I'm doing. And voila. Okay, so let's start with our permanent green number 1 lemon yellow mix. I think I'm going to want a little bit up in here, so I'm just going to kind of paint it in around. If this is trumpet vine or honeysuckle, whatever we want it to be. Again, we're not too worried. We're not painting that particular. That's not the important thing. Whatever kind of flowering vine this is. It could be anything. We could make it wisteria if we wanted to. I might make the flowers a little bit, or shaped a little bit different, but it could be anything you want. I'm gonna switch over right in here. Maybe this gets a little darker. I will say that it is a little easier to paint with masking fluid. So that was Hooker's green that I used. Or no, it was permanent green number 2, I'm sorry, that I used right there. I'm gonna grab a little more of that light green that we mixed up, the lemon yellow, permanent green number 1. I'm gonna throw that in up here. Just kind of painting around where I think that light. I can come in with a permanent green number 1, so it's still that light yellow green or light grass green, but it's not as light as the yellow and permanent green number 1 mix. I'm going to come in with a little Hooker's green down in here where I think it needs to be a little darker in some spots. Just very similar technique to what I was doing over here, especially here. This is all kind of, you know, flowering plants of some nature. Ooh, that was too much yellow. I was using up all that green and lemon yellow mix that I had, and I keep adding too much of one or the other. There we go. So I definitely want that over here. Let's see. Let's make sure that we don't forget what's going on over here as well. Maybe down in here is going to be light. This is all kind of a different volume. Same with over here. Maybe I want some of this to be lighter. And you can see I'm just kind of going between using the point of my brush and the side of my brush, just a little bit, not a lot, just really just barely. Let's see if I can do this. Just barely touching the paper. Let's see. I'm trying to get good light on that. Just barely, you know, if the edge of my finger is the top of the paper, I'm just barely pushing down, but that gives me a slightly thicker brush stroke. And over here, this can kind of start to get into the darker area. I'm going to grab a little of that violet that we've mixed, just so it's got a little more pizzazz in the foliage. You know, green and purple, or green and red really, but because there's red in the purple, they're complementary, and so it makes it a little more vibrant. Shakes it up a little bit. I could even grab a little of that indigo. Maybe it gets really kind of, you know, shadowy over in here. Just a few little spots where it's just a bit darker. Let's come back in with that light lemon yellow green mix in there. Let's make this a little darker. I'm going to grab just some Hooker's green right here. I want it not too dark, but a little darker. I want some contrast against that wall. Let's see, maybe some permanent green number 2 as well. Not super dark, but darker than the yellow on the wall, and then that can kind of just be the end of that. Maybe it kind of comes up a little bit more. I'm not sure I like how thin that got right there. Let's grab some of that light yellow. All right, right now I'm just changing the shape because I didn't really care for it. Using a little of that lemon yellow green mix just to lighten up that. Right, just changing the shape, making it a little heavier, a little thicker. Let's come in with a little Hooker's green down in here now. Hopefully that indigo isn't totally dry, but it might be. But I can kind of reconstitute it a little bit. I'm gonna make that green. I'm just gonna make that foliage. I feel like because these flowers are going to be orange and yellow, you know, orangey yellow or whatever, I want to separate them from the color of the wall just a little bit because they're going to be so similar. So we're just kind of doing our thing. and it doesn't have to be perfect, because we can come back in later and add darker stuff to it. So if it's a little too light in spots, we can add more green after we decide, you know, after it dries, we decide if we don't like it or not. You know, we can do anything we want. That's the cool thing. So I want to make this. So that was that light green mix again, the lemon yellow green mix. So we'll just kind of come down here with a little of the darker stuff. And maybe even come back in here with some of that green indigo. I'm going to add just a bit more Hooker's green to it. But I like that dark down in here. Maybe even a little right in there. And I know I normally say don't start with the dark, but that's what I'm doing. I'm painting the dark part over here first for some reason. Let's go back into some permanent green number 2. Maybe just a little bit more water. And you know, these aren't round shapes. They're just little blobby shapes. They don't have to be perfect. Let's go into just a little permanent green number 1. So that's just a lighter green. It's the light grass green, but without the lemon yellow in it that we mixed. I don't like that shape. That was looking weird. So that's all. Just kind of getting this to blend a little bit better in some spots. Let's come back in. I like that dark over here, so I think I want this to be fairly dark, kind of right in here, kind of in shadow. Still have the flowers though. And then maybe we'll bring that down just a little bit more on top of that. There we go. So there we go. That's that vine. I'm just going to let that dry on its own, because we're going to come in and just start painting these. These hollyhocks. This is all dry here. I'm not going to touch that yet. So I think I'm going to start with a little opera. So I've just got that, you know, opera pink. Still using this small brush. And I'm just going to plop in a little color here where there's white. Even sometimes where there's not, where there's a little yellow. It's so light I can add a few flowers to the top there. We'll just kind of keep doing this. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just kind of putting in a little color, but it starts to look a little bit like a hollyhock. You know, and if it looks like it, feels like it, seems like it, then it must be it. That's all this is just kind of fooling the eye, getting because it doesn't tell the whole story. We're getting the audience, you know, our viewer, to tell part of the story for themselves, and that's what makes it a much more interesting painting. It's not telling the whole story. There's not a lot of detail in these flowers. These are going to be pink too, but they could be a different plant. Who knows? Maybe this one's pink. And then if I'm careful, I can grab just a wee bit of permanent magenta, or no, not permanent magenta, quinacridone violet, not the darker mix. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there, just so it looks like maybe there's a little variation coming out from the center of the, that's too wet still. Yeah. So, and then I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get that quinacridone violet, because we want to do some burgundy ones. So I want quinacridone violet. But I'm gonna come over here and show you what I'm doing. So I have just quinacridone violet, but I want just a hint more blue in it. So I'm just gonna grab some of this. I may even come up here and just grab some of that. Just a hint. See how that's not overly dark. It's not as dark blue as that, you know, not as blue as that. So it's still very violet, but it gives us a nice kind of burgundy. So we'll come back over here. And even this, you know, like I can add a couple little buds coming in up there. Maybe I need to just pick it up just slightly so it's not quite as dark. There we go. That reads a little bit better. And have just a bit of this coming in. And if I don't cover all the white, that's okay. It's not a, again, it's just giving us that impression. I think I'm going to do this one violet too, or this kind of burgundy-ish. Let's add a few things budding out up there. That may be just a bit too dark, so we'll just hit it with the toilet paper or Kleenex, whatever that is. So we got a couple little violet, you know, burgundy ones. Let's go back to the pink. I'm going to go back to the pink. Little opera. If you have brilliant pink, which is another whole bean color, that is a great flower, you know, color for flowers. I just can't find my little thing of it. So, I mean, opera is nice too, but that brilliant pink, it's a little different pink. It's kind of like Pepto-Bismol, but in small quantities it is really quite nice. So that brilliant pink is a nice pink from Holbein. And again, they are not paying me to say that. I just happen to like it. Tom Lynch introduced me to it back when he used to use Holbein colors. Now he's using Sennelier colors, but he seems to like them. One day I might try them out too. I have a few actually. I didn't know that I had them, but I do. So I may try them out. So we're just gonna make that the opera as well. Yeah, okay. So now I want to start these little flowers here. I'm gonna do lemon yellow flowers to start with, but then I might switch it up and do some pink ones and maybe some orange ones. We'll see what I do. But so for now, we're going to use little lemon yellow. Let's get a little of that. Nice lemon yellow, and we're going to go in and just. That has a green tint to it. I gotta find a clean spot in my palette where I didn't get green in the little lemon yellow. Let's just pick that up. There we go, that's a little better. Part of it is because I think I didn't wash my brush out a second ago enough, but that's all right. So we got a little lemon yellow. I promise it'll read like flowers later. We'll grab a little opera. You know, you could even experiment with something like rose madder or azo yellow or you know, any of those, Indian yellow, azo yellow. Heck, you could even experiment with a little pyrrole orange. I've done flowers with pyrrole orange before. So let's just, I'm gonna do a few pink ones here. I think maybe these back here will be whatever this taller, bushier area. These can be pink. Just to have a mix, and then we'll come in with a little permanent yellow deep. We'll come in, maybe these are marigold or something down in here or something. Who knows? I mean, I'm not really naming these flowers. I'm just thinking of what they could be. Just to help me decide, you know, what colors I want to use. Maybe they'll switch back. Let's see, I want to get another. Yeah, maybe they'll switch back to the yellow. Over here. Yeah, so different, you know, colored marigolds or something, whatever they are. But yeah, that's working all right. And if this looks like just foliage, that's okay too. It you know, if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. And let's see here. I'm gonna move back into. I think I'm gonna use this violet mix to make kind of a burgundy. Go back into some burgundy hollyhocks here. So maybe we've got a few little dudamahitchis up there, you know, little buds up at the top again. I kind of like adding those. I think that kind of helps. Got some flowers on the side here, just these burgundy, almost. I have some hollyhocks seeds. I haven't planted them. Somebody gave them to me. The hollyhocks are so dark they almost look black. It's really kind of cool. They're a dark purple. It's just kind of a neat. If I feel like that's too dark, I can lift a little. So just kind of, yeah. So I think so I've got a burgundy one there. I think we're gonna put in a nice let's see, do a nice opera pink hollyhock here. Just using the tip of my paintbrush just to kind of fill in some of those areas. Let's see, I'm going to make this other little one right here pink as well. Just because. And I'm going to switch back to these violet. I kind of like having these two different colors of hollyhock. If that's too dark, I can just pick it up just a wee bit. Just going in, kind of filling in those little white spaces. And if I leave some white, that's okay, because that just feels like, you know, it just seems like sunlight dappling on the flowers. So don't feel like you have to go in and perfectly fill in these little areas of white. If you leave some white, that just adds to that dappled sunlight kind of effect. I'm gonna pick some of that up because that just seemed, I don't know, I'm not super happy with that, but it's not terrible. I may come back in and make those orange. Okay, let's see. I think this one's gonna be burgundy too. Just coming in with that again, this is quinacridone violet mixed with just a hint of blue. Not very much, because I still wanted it fairly violet, but I wanted it just a bit darker than the quinacridone violet. Let's see, I'm gonna make this one violet too, or this burgundy violet color or whatever as well. And then I remember I had a little one right there, so I'm gonna make that one pink. You know, it's just a little color change for no apparent reason, other than maybe there's just another little hollyhock that grew in there, or a couple of them or something. Maybe I remember there was kind of one in this area. How did that work? It was kind of coming up to here, so that can be a pink one. And maybe this guy over here, it won't really matter. This guy will kind of, you know, he's kind of going to get covered up, kind of like that one over there too. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. Jeez, for the how long have I been like that? I'm so sorry. So as you can see, let me explain what I did. Although it's fairly obvious, I just the problems with Zoom. Maybe this is why Zoom doesn't have Zoom. You know, I just kind of came in and decided, okay, these are, you know, it's fully random, or ish. Nothing is truly random, but so I have a hollyhock there that's pink. I have a hollyhock here that's pink. There's this small one here that's pink, and then these two were violet. And then I'm going to do these last two violet. I think this kind of burgundy violet. So maybe those have a little deal up at the top again, just like this. And then, yeah, this last one can be violet or burgundy, whatever. And, you know, these little spots may or may not show up once I paint those trees in, but that's okay. Mauve is another good, if you have a mauve, that's another good paint color to use instead of, you know, if that's what you have instead of what I'm using. That works really well. Yeah, so there we go. There are the hollyhocks and the flowers. I think I am going to turn those orange. You know, on the other one, the yellow worked pretty well. But I'm going to come in with just a little bit of this. I don't even know if that's working. I'm going to use Pyro Orange. That's what I'm going to do. We'll just come in and just boop, 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 boop. These are just going to be super bright on some of these. We'll just add it. Let's see here. It's going to look a little weird at first, but I'm going to come back in and do a little tiny bit of lifting. There wasn't a lot of white in this section, so to cover up with the yellow, so that might be why. But what I'm going to do is, so I put that down. I'm going to let it dry for a second. In fact, I'm going to let it sit there. I might even hit it with a hairdryer really quick. Just to get it to kind of set. And then I'm just going to kind of lightly pick it up with my Kleenex. So just going to kind of, boom. And that made that exactly what it needed to be. Yeah, that's okay. So now we have yellow, orange, a darker orange, and pink flowers. So that's all right. Okay, so let's, now we're gonna do this trumpet vine thing up here, and I think because that's what I've been calling it, we're gonna do those in these, you know, like the oranges. So I'm gonna use a little permanent yellow deep, kind of come in here. And add a whole slew of these, and this is going to be pretty quick. I could even use, you know, if I wanted to use a little azo yellow, I could do that. That's fairly close. Or Indian yellow, that would be a good one. I don't have to worry too much about. Same goes with this. If I don't cover all of the white area, it is okay. It just looks like dappled sunlight on the, where you know, a flower petal or whatever is catching a little bit more light than another part of that same flower. So that's really what's going on here. Just and I did switch to the Azo Yellow. I just liked it. It was a little brighter, slightly lighter than the Permanent Yellow Deep. But you know, if you have Permanent Yellow Deep or you have Cadmium Yellow Deep or what, you know, that's a great color. I just switched over because I have the Azo Yellow and I don't use it very often, and I like it. I am going to come in now in a couple of spots, and I'm going to, just because I want some variation, I'm going to add a little Permanent Yellow Deep. I'm sorry, a little Permanent Yellow Orange. So cadmium orange, just to some spots so I have variation in the flower color. Same plant, just various oranges. So that's all this is. And maybe it's a little darker in the shadow area, I don't know. It you know, I don't need any explanation. It doesn't matter why. It's just a variation of orange flower, or yellowy orange flower. So that's really the key. We'll switch back to the lighter Azo. Maybe down here. No, I kind of like the lighter Azo Yellow right there. We'll put a little of this regular Permanent Yellow Orange, Cadmium Orange, whatever you're using. We'll use a little of that over here. Maybe just a hair of it, hair more over here too, just to kind of break that up just a little bit more. Back to the Azo Yellow. I also don't worry about if I get a little of the Azo Yellow on top of the green. Doesn't matter. People won't see it. It just, you know, it's just one of those things that even you know, it may overlap a little bit, and that's okay. There we go. That's it. That's our kind of flowered vine. I have to apologize for being zoomed in and not being able to see what I was doing there for a while. So let's see. Actually, while that's drying, I'm going to paint this tree over here, and I'm going to start again with a little lemon yellow permanent green mix. I know that the light's coming from this side, so I'm just going to kind of come in here and move my brush around in kind of this interesting you know, tree kind of shape, or you know, way. I don't mean, not shape, but I'm filling in this shape in an interesting way. Let's see, so that's the permanent green yellow mix, lemon yellow mix. Just a little bit more. Maybe there's a little over in here. This could be sticking out further from, you know, so just adding volume to parts of the tree. And then let's come in with a little permanent green number 2. Or actually, I think this is permanent green number 1, just without the lemon yellow mixed in. So either would be fine. And you can see I'm just kind of letting that mix in while this is wet, letting that color run together. I'm going to be a little careful painting around these guys because I don't want to paint too much over them, but it's all right. A lot of times if I was using masking fluid, I wouldn't have done the flowers yet, but and I can't remember the order that I did them on Monday, so if you remember me painting them after the trees, I apologize. I'm gonna add a little of this darker green over in here. Not too dark, but a little bit. I didn't on the other one, but I kind of probably was saving it, but that's okay. I will add some on the other one. So if you don't have this on yours and you're just watching along to kind of get caught up, don't sweat it. Don't worry too much. Let's come in with a little hooker's green, just a wee bit to help differentiate between. I need it on both sides of this plant, so there. Maybe a little green. Oops, that's not it. Let's grab a little green number 2 down in here. Yeah, I didn't use that dark green. I remember that, so I apologize for jumping the gun on that, but I also apologize for just forgetting to hit record. Even with my sign, I did not remember. So all this is just adding this initial tree wash in here. So that's all we're doing. We're just maybe I'll grab a little more of that lemon yellow permanent green mix. Because this is starting to dry out and I need to add a little more paint and a little more water just to get that. I want this to be a fairly smooth wash, or not smooth, but a fairly wet wash. Words are failing me. It's that time of day when I get a little tired. Little hooker's green down in there just to help with that. A little more hooker's green over here. Just put a little up there too, just for giggles. And back over here to this side. So I got that, initial kind of wash, and then it may be a little darker than I want, but it'll dry a little bit lighter. I don't know if I like that shape that I made there. So I'm just gonna make the tree a little taller and change it. All right, back into here. And maybe a little permanent green. So that was the lemon yellow permanent green number 1 mix. Now I'm using a little permanent green number 2. I could even just use a little permanent green number 1 by itself. Over here, I don't mind, this is going to get a little darker later, but I don't mind if we lose this edge between the, I kind of painted over that flower, but that's all right. I don't mind if we lose this edge eventually a little bit, so it's kind of lost and found. can't totally tell where that tree, this tree in the background ends and the vine in the foreground, or mid-ground, whatever we want to call it, begins. So if we lose a little bit of that, it's all right. Let's go back in here. I'm just going to kind of clean up this line a little bit with the fence. There we go. Let's get some of this to kind of do its thing there. Yeah. So there we have the two trees. You know, and it's just two tree shapes. It could be multiple trees. And, you know, there could be multiple trees in each shape, so it doesn't really... Just get that kind of dry. Okay, so I'm going to paint these pine trees and then we'll be done for now. Oh, I can tell I added more violet down in here. That other paint. That's all right, doesn't matter. I can add it later. So we're going to paint these pine trees, and if you recall, I used a little indigo. So I'm just going to make a nice little, or maybe it was royal blue. I don't know, it doesn't matter. I've got a little blue here, royal blue, indigo, whichever you want to use. I've got a little Hooker's green blue mix over here. We'll just make that Hooker's green and royal blue. Add a little bit more blue. That may even be Antwerp blue. It doesn't matter. It's just a nice dark blue. And then I need to come back over here. I got the quinacridone violet. And I need a little blue for it. There we go. And that's what we're going to start with. I'm also, I don't know if you remember, I'm also going to use a little permanent red, which sounds weird for a pine tree, but you guys know that I've used opera and even pyrrole orange in the past. Today I'm going to do it with a little permanent red. So we're going to come back over here where we can see what we're doing. And we're going to zoom in on that section. Whoops, I still need this up at an angle. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to start with the violet blue mix, and I'm just going to, let's move this over even more so my hand's not quite in the way. So I'm just going to come in, and you can see I'm just using the tip of my brush and I'm painting up and down with this tree shape. So it's very similar to the way I scribbled that that tree shape in with the pencil. It's, you know, very similar. Before this gets too dry, I want to come back in with this permanent red and just start that running down in there. And then I'm going to switch over to, I don't know that I used any of the blue. I'm going to switch over to the green, that, you know, Hooker's green royal blue mix. I don't remember using any of the blue last time, and it doesn't matter. These are kind of small trees. I can now, as I get down, you know, I'm still thinking about the overall pine tree shape, but I'm also thinking about what this tree in front of it looks like. So I am sculpting, I'm using negative painting to sculpt what this tree will look like as well. So hopefully that's dry. Yeah, I dried it. I forgot. So I'm just kind of, you know, using this tree in the background to inform the viewer of the shape of the tree in the in front of it. I'm gonna add a little more of that red. I just like that contrast where we get a little red and violet running down to form, you know, some sort of pine tree, whether it's a blue spruce or a ponderosa pine or lodgepole pine, it doesn't matter. Let's see this next one. Oh, that's where I used the blue. I'm just going to come in because this tree is a little further back. I'm not going to worry about so much about color changes. I'm just going to do blue. This one's behind these other two, so, and it's not necessarily shorter, it's just further back, so it appears shorter. So you can see, just painting, I'm painting up, I'm painting down, I'm pushing the brush, so I'm getting a thick stroke or a thin stroke. I'll just use the tip of the brush, then I'll switch to using the side of the brush. Here where it meets the tree, maybe I want a little bit of that white to show through, so it's quite a nice, you know, bit of dappled, you know, a bit of sunlight or whatever on that tree. There we go. I'm going to drop in just a bit more water right there. Really get that to run and blend those colors. All right, and then I'm going to come back over here with the violet. This tree is going to be short, you know, at a different height than this one, but I think this one may be the one that's in the front. Maybe this one's taller than both of these. So we'll just kind of come in like so. You can see I'm just, again, taking my time thinking about shape. I'm not doing, you know, I'm not painting a pine tree like this. Oops, you can't even see it, like this. You know, or I'm not painting a pine tree like we all do Christmas cards. Oh, you can't see that either. Jeez. You know, I'm making it have that kind of lacy pine tree feel. I'm going to come in with a little green now. And that's just by moving the brush in a bunch of different ways, kind of scribbling in this tree, using the side of the brush, using the tip, applying a little bit of pressure, applying more pressure. Let's see, so that's the green there. Before that dries at the top, I want to come in, clean my brush. I want to grab the permanent red and just add a little bit of a highlight to this. And then let that run down through all of that. Just makes for a more interesting tree when it's not all green. It's a little hard to tell on camera, but I make this one just a touch taller. I'll add a little bit of a thing to that. It'll probably disappear in the sky anyway. Then maybe I will move in with a little of this. I'm actually, well, this is a little blue-green with a little higher on the blue side. And we'll just kind of come in. And again, as I get down here, I need to pay attention to how this shapes these. Somewhere down the road, I may decide that maybe I want another tree on this or something. But for now, this is where we're going to kind of finish it up. But you can see it's now shaping this and these three trees there. just by using that nice, really dark. Let me zoom back out. There we go. That's where we are at this point. And Monday we will pick this back up and finish it. But yeah, so I don't know which one of mine I will use, whether it's this one or the first one I started. We'll see. I don't know. I like parts of both of them, so maybe I'll finish them both and they'll be studies of the same thing. All right. Well, I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.